Bulls,
Bears,
Blackhawks,
Stars,
Fire,
Boomers, whatever the national story is of the day.
Geyer and his sports czar takes will either have you nodding in agreement,
Yelling at the radio,
or in all honesty,
a bit of both.
with the way the Chicagoland sports and sports are in general, there's bound to be
Thrills,
chills, and
oh my God moments. So get your snacks and libations ready,
because this is going to be a wild ride.
Big Top Sports with Derek Geyer's quirky and insightful Fanatics take
will make you feel a little
or a lot better about your Chicagoland sports viewing experiences.
Tune in to Big Top Sports with Derek Geyer. Every weeknight from 6 p.m.
to 8 p.m.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410, Elgin time, 12 o'clock.
Breaking news at Town Hall. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. More Democrats say they approve of the job President Trump is doing. Overall, 47% of respondents to the latest AP NORC survey say they do approve of the way the president has handled the crisis in Gaza. That's up from 37% who said the same thing the previous month. And pollsters indicate that they blame the rise in this case on more Democrats who account for rising approval of the president. Israel has identified the remains of a 76-year-old hostage handed over by Hamas. He was among those abducted back in 2023. Former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Dr. Michael Oren, says the president's accomplishments in the Middle East are undeniable, but he does have a word of caution.
There are tremendous heavy lifts awaiting, not the least of which, perhaps the primary of which, is the demilitarization of Gaza and disarming Hamas.
And Dr. Oren made his comments to the Salem radio network. He warns there is still a lot of hard work to be done. New York Congressman, disgraced New York Congressman George Santos, getting out of prison. That's because President Trump has commuted his sentence. Shohei Ohtani hit 3 home runs and pitched shutout ball into the 7th inning last night for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Manager Dave Roberts.
What he did on the mound, what he did at the bat, he created a lot of memories for a lot of people. And so for us to, have a game-clinching, to do it in a game-clinching game at home, wins the NLCS MVP, pretty special, and I'm just happy to be able to go along for the ride.
And Ohtani made history with both his dual roles for the defending champion Dodgers. They returned out to the World Series with a 5-1 victory over the Milwaukee Brewers that completed their 4-game sweep, and they say he put on a spectacular two-way show in the process. More from townhall.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy. In 2011, I founded Wesley Financial Group with one goal in mind, to help honest folks out of their timeshares permanently. Today, I run Wesley with my 2 sons, a real family business, treating every client and every employee like we'd want our own family treated. That philosophy has helped us grow into the largest, most trusted timeshare cancellation company in the United States. Fortune magazine even recognized us as one of the best places to work. Why? Because we genuinely care. In fact, some of our former clients were so moved by their experience working with us, they joined our team so they could help
join your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvitt on our weekly radio hour, Chief Guard of the Republic, where we talk about all things national security, defense, personal security, safety, and dealing with law enforcement situations. Call in 847-931-1410. Ask us questions. We will get you answers every week, Saturday, noon to 1 on 1410 AM WRMN Elgin. Streaming on WRMN1410.com. Chat with us on WRMN's YouTube live channel.
Chicago defense attorney Mark Schieblo has co-authored the book titled DUI Jury Trial, which is a true story of a DUI case that he defended. The accused was an Illinois truck driver arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol. This book contains facts about the case from the date of the arrest up to the jury's verdict, and this nonfiction novel also includes the transcripts from the jury trial itself. The book DUI Jury Trial is now available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com.
Fix bayonets, comrades. This is the Chief Guard of the Republic radio show with your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvitt every Saturday noon to 2 on the WRMN 1410 AM, the Fox River Valley Media Network. We're streaming live on WRMN1410.com. Our studio call-in number is 847-931-1410. Our text is 505-926-1410. And you can hit us up live on the WRMN 1410 channel. Go to the live, and we'll be streaming there. You can see us, and then you can make comments in the chat. So, Paul, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I when I was down in Mexico, I listened to you and Marla. You know, a lot of retro Chicago stuff.
Yeah, it was fun. We had a great time, and we were glad of the support, and Dennis texted in, and he liked it. So we had a great time. We really liked that show. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And let me see. So I survived Mexico, Zacatecas. Wasn't kidnapped or anything. In fact, you know, downtown, they had so many police there, like every police officer imaginable. And they had the federales, they had the state guys, they had the local guys, they had security out there. I never felt more safe down there, and it was a great time. And I didn't get sick until I ate a sandwich at the Dallas airport.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I was fine all the way through, and then you have a sandwich at Dallas airport, and it does me in. So let me give a shout out to, this is originally a veteran shout out show. And my personal shout out is for the Dunkin' Donuts veterans over in Niles on just east of Harlem on Dempster. All right, so they got a Dunkin' Donuts there. We meet there every Tuesday between 9 and it goes on to maybe 10:30, depending on if we have speakers and how long they go. But guys usually get there around 8 o'clock or even earlier, and they set up, and there's about 100 veterans there. Guys from all over. We got World War II guys. They're still around. Korean War guys. Most of these guys are like Vietnam veterans because it was started by 2 Vietnam veterans. Real good guys. We pass along a lot of veteran information, you know, and we all get together and pray for guys that are sick or have passed and everything. So great group of guys. Hope to see. Hope some of them call in. You know, I know some of them. That's a little west.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, that's 75 on Harlem. There's one. This one's actually on Dempster. I think it's 7139 on Dempster or 7039 on Dempster. So, yeah, it's there. You go.
There we go.
There we go. 7039 Dempster, Dunkin' Donuts. Great people. All right, great donuts. You know, never gotten sick there on any of their donuts or anything. All right, so Paul, today, and it's interesting that we're talking about it because I can make the connections, but today we're going to be talking about terrorism and kind of specifically domestic terrorism. And today they have a little demonstration, which is probably the least of the demonstrations, the most, what do you call, innocuous or innocent of them, the No King's Day. So what do you think of No King's Day, Paul?
Well, I have a feeling, I'm not supposed to know this, but I have a feeling that some friends of mine, one that I worked with who is a friend of mine, she sent me a picture from the last one, and maybe some relatives of mine might be down there. And you know, I'm sad. Okay, not because of what they do, but because just by what they're doing, they're proving that we don't have a king. Because had we had a king, they wouldn't be having the demonstration.
He would have sent out his knights of the round table to behead them all.
That's right. They'd be at either in a dungeon, thrown into a lake, or burned at the stake. So, I mean, it's really kind of sad that people are perpetuating this myth. But, you know, we do have a country that allows us to demonstrate and have our voices heard. But my question is, why aren't our voices heard about important things? You know, like health care for people or curing diseases. Why don't they spend a little? And you know what it's become, to be honest with you? And I'm going to call this out on some people that I know. It's become a kitschy way for rich, entitled people to pretend and get their bones and say that they're public service. I know people that go down there, they then go to expensive restaurants, and now that they go gambling. So it's become like an intelligentsia, as they would say in 1917, an intelligentsia convocation, and it's really kind of sad because there's so much things that you know, had they maybe if they spend a little of their gambling and Starbucks money and sign making money and donate it to some. Maybe they could actually help a child get an operation or fund poor animals that might normally be killed if they're not adopted. Maybe they should use their money for that instead of voicing something that I don't care.
Their money and their time, yeah.
Right.
But
I really
here's one. Is that one of the ladies? I think that's one of the ladies from the. I was in the Blue Box Cafe, wonderful place. This is in Elgin off Chicago Avenue, and great sandwich, great coffee. The girls there know my name because I've been coming in for over a year now, right? And there were a couple ladies there with their No King sign, and I'm like, they're in their 50s, and I'm like, these two have never missed a meal. They have never had their heat or their electricity shut off. They have never had to downgrade their house to move to somewhere better that they can afford. They've never had to drive a 20-year-old car to barely keep it running. Their kids all went to nice public schools where they saved the money so they could have a boat, right? So they could have a summer home. All this stuff. They don't have to pay for private schools because the inner city schools aren't worth anything. So they're but here's the thing, and this is where I'm going to trace it out to where it's on domestic terrorism. All right. It is not illegal to be a paid protester. All right. You can collect money by being a street actor, and a lot of these guys get a lot of extra money from going to these demonstrations, and they get paid for it. So they might not necessarily back up what the demonstrations are about. They're just collecting the money. However, if you take the coin from someone to do that, you're in effect supporting it, right? So you can't sit there and say you can't be all innocent and say, well, I only did it for the money. Or the other reason, my favorite other reason, is these guys going there to find girls, to get a date with or to take advantage of. Or girls going there to find guys to get a date with, to take advantage of. All right. And it's not really about what the people paying for the protest are about. All right. They are sitting there trying to obstruct, trying to do a psychological operation, much like a riot is a psychological operation. These protests are organized, planned psychological operations to reduce the people's confidence within their current government. All right, so you didn't see a lot of paid protests against the previous regime. You didn't see that because, it's kind of hard to already undercut the confidence in the government at that time. All right, so now when you have a big jump, you want to bring them down to your level. And the people with the money that are collecting the money and they're paying it out. Now, they're not paying all of it out. They get donors and they're not paying all of it out. They're going to have enough money to buy 6 or 7 mansions. They're going to have enough money to pay themselves a consulting fee or to pay themselves the administrative fees. So they're always taking their cut off the top as being an officer of, I don't even know if they're listed as 401, as 501c3s or C anything, right? Because the veterans organizations are C19s. So here's the thing, right? As soon as President Trump declared that the Antifa is a domestic terrorist organization, by the definition for the FBI uses, right? Then all of a sudden, their leaders all fled the country. Now, if you are totally innocent, right, and you're backed by the law, and they're very specific on this, that the difference between your First Amendment rights, you have to really, really dig down deep to domestic terrorism cases. They don't go after the organizations. They go after people within the organizations. All right? So the people in the organizations there are, get back. The people are what they're going after, the leadership and everything that are organizing this. They're going after them for conspiracy, for organizations themselves. They're not going after. They're not going to roll up the whole. They're not going to roll up the whole organization and say we're all locking for terror organization and say we're all locking for terrorists as if they were a foreign terrorist or as if they were a foreign terrorist organization. You get what organization? You get where I'm going at, Paul?
No, I do. And you
are violations of the state of Illinois. Are violations of the state of Illinois ICLS. All right, so she is not protecting the Constitution of the state of Illinois.
Or her people, and I informed her that what needed to happen was that her people needed to get involved and they needed to set up a separate area. And 2 days later, she set up a free speech zone and then said this wasn't going to be tolerated. So I don't know if my letter had any impact on prompting her to do what she should have done to begin with. But you know what was interesting in that? And I pointed this out. At the time, I saw 3 people there who were themselves running for higher office. And I told her, I said, it's not lost on me what you're allowing to happen here. You're allowing these people to come out with their film crews so that come January, when the primary for the next election starts, we'll have campaign commercials with these people acting as if they're, protecting the people who are going against the current administration. So they're allowing. They're
not just allowing, but they're encouraging for political reasons. It's a big show for them, right?
Right.
And they have political connections, and they're talking to their political likewise people. I'm not mentioning any parties or anything. And they're allowing this to happen, just what you said, so they could go pound their chest and say, see what I did for you and everything. I'm doing this for you, right? Meanwhile, you got a bunch of the people in custody that get shot up, right? You get the ICE officers who are literally defending the Constitution of the United States, enforcing the laws of the nation that are on the books, all right? On the books, those are actual laws that they're enforcing. If you want to stop those laws from being enforced, Then you could have, under the previous 3 administrations ago, right? You could have demanded when they had the House and the Senate and the presidency to repeal those laws, to put the law on the books, right? To institute a bill. Of course, it would be party line vote, right? They would get the bill passed through the House, through the Senate, then the president would sign off on it. And then, hey, you wouldn't have this problem because you couldn't enforce that law because there'd be no law to enforce. But they wouldn't do it because they realized what would happen with that. What would absolutely happen, crush the economy, everything else, and that the whole public would suddenly turn against them. All right? There's be no way that they could pad the voter rolls or anything to change the outcry of the public, all right, on that. So they didn't do it. But now they're acting like, oh, well, they're enforcing the laws and those are unfair laws. Dude, you had 8 years to change those laws, and you didn't. And now you're saying that they're unfair? Well, what happened when you were in charge? If you thought they were unfair back then, why didn't you just eliminate them?
Well, if you go back to 2008, they really had at least 12 years in that time period, too.
So we got a caller?
Yeah, hi. Hey, guys.
Hey, Larry, what's up?
Okay, I want to say that, you know what really annoys me about these, and can I mention names, or you don't want me to mention names?
No, don't mention party names. We're not about the parties here.
Well,
we're about law and order and following the Constitution.
All right.
All right?
Yes, sir. Okay. What gets me is members of the Chicago delegation of a certain party march with Mexican flags at these ICE demonstrations. Do you know what I'm saying? Why is it that, I'm mentioning his name, my congressman, who you know, along with others.
My congressman, too.
Yes, okay. March under the Mexican flag.
Because they want to, and that's their First Amendment right.
Okay, I'll go with that. But, you know, let's be honest, okay? My congressman, who's your congressman, they're aiming at their next level, like unofficially he's running for mayor and stuff like that. And you see, and then I see commercials by a guy running for U.S. Senate of a certain party. They just have to say a certain name of the president, and then boom, it's like, hey, this is, you know, everything is going to come down to this.
Well,
this.
You see,
you're talking about the guy that has the barbershop quartet in his commercials once in a while?
It's a guy who was born in India. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, he's got the barbershop quartet.
Okay, fine.
It's theater. It's kabuki theater of the absurd.
So
that's the scary part. It's almost like we're in a play manipulated by a puppet master. Okay. And they are the puppet master.
All right, so the puppet master is what I'm talking about. So if there wasn't any funding, all right, and if there wasn't guaranteed press coverage where I could get my 55-year-old suburban housewife face on the news and videotape that and then show it to all my friends, look, I was on the news, I was doing something, and plus I got a paycheck for it, right? And if it wasn't for that, right, would these be spontaneous demonstrations?
Right.
Would they be spontaneous? Two more calls?
Of course not.
No, not at all.
No, that shows you it's not spontaneous, it's paid for. And if it's paid for, then it's a political advertisement. If it's paid for and it causes death and destruction or it's harmful to human beings, then that falls under terrorism, right?
It's diversion paid for by an offshore actor trying to manipulate our country.
And that's foreign terrorism.
It's exactly terrorism. It is exactly terrorism.
Now, if you have a foreign terrorist, the one thing that the country wants to do, all right, that says in the laws, is that any bank, all right, if you declare a guy or organization a foreign terrorist organization and that bank knows that they have funds from that person or organization, they have to freeze them and announce it to the U.S. government. All right, so we'll come back after commercial with the Chief Guard of the Republic talking about No King's Day. Want to read some action-packed, exciting pulp fiction? Read the works of Michael Tooman, now featuring their international crime thriller, I Married a Bot Madam. Available on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle editions. The paperback is also available at other book retailers. Check out Michael Tooman's webpage at Scilink.net. That's Papa Sierra Yankee Lima India November Kilo dot November Echo Tango.
Are you dreaming of a getaway? Want to leave the stress of daily life behind? Whether it's a relaxing cruise or an adventurous land escape, planning the perfect vacation doesn't have to be a hassle. At Cruises International, they specialize in vacation destinations, land and sea, making your dreams come true. Located at 1721 Moon Lake Boulevard in Hoffman Estates, Cruises International isn't just about booking travel. They're your personal concierge, trusted travel advisor, and advocate. Your preferences are unique, and they'll take the time to understand exactly what you're looking for. From personalized service to their global network of specialists, they ensure that your vacation is tailor-made just for you. It's time to plan the vacation of a lifetime. Call 800-255-7447. That's 800-255-7447 today and speak to a cruise and vacation expert. Cruises International. It's time to set sail to your dream destination.
Systems run everything. Government, economy, media, justice. They shape your choices, your opportunities, your future. But do they work for you or against you? On Apolitical Talk Show, we break them down, not to destroy, but to understand. Because if you don't see how the system works, you won't see when it's being manipulated or who's benefiting from it. Power belongs to those who know the rules, challenge the loopholes, and demand accountability. That starts with knowledge. That starts here. Join us weekdays from 4 to 6 p.m. as we uncover what's really happening behind the headlines so you can decide for yourself what's fair, what's broken, and what needs to change. Apolitical Talk Show, breaking down the systems to build them up together. Right here, weekdays 4 to 6 on WRMN, the talk of the town.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My Grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my Grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. The Alzheimer's Association provides care, support, and research to help you take control of the situation with your family and manage the disease together. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. Visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Join your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvitt on our weekly radio hour, Chief Guard of the Republic, where we talk about all things national security, defense, personal security, safety, and dealing with law enforcement situations. Call in 847-931-1410. Ask us questions. We will get you answers. Every week, Saturday, noon to 1 on 1410 AM WRMN Elgin. Streaming on WRMN1410.com. Chat with us on WRMN's YouTube live channel. Fix Bayonets, comrades, we're back for the second half of the Chief Guard of the Republic radio show with our co-host Paul Burvitt every Saturday noon to 2 WRMN 1410 AM. You can find that on WRMN1410.com. Pretty easy to remember. And we're streaming live on the WRMN YouTube channel. Call us in at 847-931-1410. Text us at 505-926-1410. Thank you for everyone that's been texting in. I'm trying to get to you right now. One of the things I got to say is we have tonight at the Schiller Park Community Center, 4501 on 25th Avenue. So I know the signal gets out there, or it's close if you're close enough. We have a movie night. We're going to be showing The Great Race, and after the great race, we're going to be having oh, great. I tell you, Matt's the best. He's got all of our stuff locked right in. I got the best producer ever.
Thank you.
And we're going to have a downhill or a downhill toy wooden car race. So we can't call it a Pinewood Derby race, but it's kind of like a Pinewood Derby race because the Pinewood Derby is copyrighted by the Cub Scouts, I believe. But we're not doing a Pinewood Derby. We're doing a wooden car downhill track race. And we're probably going to be doing this every month. I know there's like some circuits out there where these physicists and everything, they take these cars, and you can only have 5 ounces, and the tracks are pretty standard, right? And they figure out to the picogram, what's the best way, friction and everything. So it's going to be a good time. We're going to be doing it once a month. It's a fundraiser for our post, the American Legion Post 104. And we do, with that money, we support things in the community. Like this year, last year, at the beginning of the spring, we supported the Little League out of Schiller Park, which started with like 8 kids, like 10 years ago. And now they've got all these teams and everything. So the kids get out there to play baseball, girls teams, guys teams, intramural teams, co-ed teams. And they got coaches out there. They're learning team sports. They're meeting people, they're being competitive. So not only do we support veterans organizations, but we support the community. And any little bit that we could make, the fundraising, that all goes back to the community. We don't spend that stuff on ourselves.
I won the Pinewood Derby in 1968 at St. Nicholas, the Palatine, Pack 3647. I won it.
Still got your car?
No. I gave it to my cousin.
Yeah. Well, I'll I give you homemade kits, or I'm going to order some kits off Amazon and probably sell them as a fundraiser. We want this stuff to take off. We want, the movies that we show are kid friendly, right? They're movies you're not going to see on the big screen anymore, but we got the big screen. So I just want to let that be known out.
That's a great movie, by the way. That is a great movie.
Yeah, great. I remember it when I was a kid. It was fun. It was like Around the World in 80 Days, or
a car race, an actual car race over the ocean too.
Yeah, and
by the pole.
In November, we're going to show Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Oh, nice. That's a Thanksgiving type movie, anyway.
Yeah. The toy maker by who was Benny Hill. Benny Hill played the toy maker in that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So
didn't they sit on a table upside down in that one, on a roof or something, ceiling? Have I got that one right? Maybe.
No. I know they had no spoilers, but he had his father-in-law. All right.
Yeah.
Then there was Dick Van Dyke had the father-in-law. I forget the name of the guy that played him, but he was kind of an eccentric veteran. Looked like the whole family was just living off of his veteran pension.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give any more spoilers on that.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so we so now you hit, when we're talking about domestic, you got foreign terrorism, and what I found pretty interesting on this is you go to the State Department. So who determines what a foreign terrorist organization is? It's the State Department, along with, I believe, the Secretary of Treasury, so Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, Department of Homeland Security, and the Attorney General. So they get together and they say, due to all of our intelligence that we have in and everything, this organization is a foreign terrorist organization. And the consequences of that anyone that belongs to that foreign terrorist organization, is subject to arrest by us, at least by us, right? Anyone that donates to a foreign terrorist organization, like I write a check to ISIS, out of my bank account, right? It goes over, ISIS cashes the check, all right? The bank notifies the FBI that I just sent a check to ISIS, right? Then FBI comes in and locks me up for supporting a foreign terrorist organization. Or I announce that I want to be part of ISIS. And I go buy an airplane ticket to go over to Syria or one of the places where they're still around, right? And FBI locks me up for attempted material support being myself, right, to ISIS. Right, so that's what happens with foreign terrorist organization. And the first thing they'll do, as soon as the State Department announces that, they freeze any assets they have in the United States. So we have, there are some politically aligned intelligence analysts out there and there's some of their supervisors that will either not report intelligence or twist the intelligence. They'll make, okay, so there's information and there's intelligence, all right? So they won't report information because it leans the wrong way towards the intelligence, or they'll twist the information to make it lean their way, right? And they're mucking up the actual intelligence, all right? Because you got to have verified sources, multiple sources, all right? Multiple verified sources, and just not one. You have to have information coming out everywhere. Then you put it together, and now it's intelligence because it's likely true, very likely true. All right, so we got people out there, good people, I worked with them, that will tell you, we've checked these accounts and we've traced them back. We've done our flow chart, and we've traced the rat line of money back to this individual, multi-million-dollar individual here, and he thinks that he laundered it right, that it couldn't be tracked back to him, but it's tracked back to him. Now you lock him up, right, for providing material support to one of these organizations. So, that's what's going to stop the terrorists, empty their pockets. So we got another caller. Hi, how you doing? Who's out there?
Good. How are you? It's Larry. How you doing?
Larry again. All right, Larry.
I have a question that really annoys me. Can I bring up my religion or no religions?
Well, you know what? We're not really a religious show, but if you think it matters, Larry, but just...
well, what annoys me, I'm of the Jewish faith, okay, as you know, okay?
Yes, but we're trying to get you to convert to Catholicism.
Yes, you tried. Like one person once said to me when I told him I was Jewish, she said, "Don't worry, I hate all religions, so you'll fit in." But my question is this, okay, and I'm serious, Mike, okay?
Yeah.
Why are half my people still have this burning desire to be communists, and then they are associated with a party, okay? I could show you historically that what has happened to us, and now we're also enamored by the Palestinian cause. It's amazing. I've seen all these Jewish groups like Cold Pink.
Okay, Larry.
Yes,
all right, so what you said right off the bat, I'm going to answer your question with that. All right? I'm going to answer your question flat out because I don't want to be labeled. I don't care if you label me as a racist. I don't care if you label me as a anti-Semite. I don't care if I'm labeled as any of that stuff, right?
Look, Mike,
but here, what you said in the beginning, Larry, is half of your people. All right? Half of your people. Well, what about the other half? Same in the United States. We have kind of half. We have kind of half. We have 50-50, right?
I would just generally say that's correct.
All right, so you can't judge the whole group based on half of the group. All right?
Larry?
Okay.
Larry?
Yes, sir.
Larry?
Yes, sir.
Larry?
I'm listening.
Larry, my great-grandmother was Jewish, and I'll just tell you something. Larry, some of the more Christian-like people I've ever met are actually Jewish. So that, it's just a way things go. They are truly more Christian than the Christians are. But to me, it's half the population wants to view itself as they can't understand it. so they view themselves as being at fault. So they're internalizing what these other people are saying about them, and they've adopted it as their persona. So they've adopted that they must go out of their way to help these people for a principle maybe that's faulty in and of itself. So they just internalize it because they're that type of, they're, in other words, they're a perpetual victim, or they're a walk-in RD number. They're the ones that always get into trouble because they said it must be my fault, even though it had no fault of theirs. They want to accept, they accept the guilt for no reason at all, and that's part of it.
That's kind of a mental illness there. All right.
Yeah. Well, you see, what I don't understand, and ask Paul, is my family, both sides of my family, my mother and father came to the United States after World War I, roughly between 1920 and 1922. What the hell did we do that would want to make us feel guilty? I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So.
Well, it's their narrative, and they need to perpetuate that narrative on the people that don't know the truth or understand the truth. So that it's something that, you know, at first, in other words, it at first passed the smell test. It still might be rotten, but it doesn't stink right off the bat. And so they use that to gain support, or in other words, dimwits follow them.
All right, so
and you know,
you gotta look at this. Some people are prone to feeling a little guilty because they have it better than everyone else. Usually, they have it better than everyone else because their parents worked hard, made money, had them educated, moved to an area where jobs would be available. They married well. They didn't marry down. They're living well and everything, and they look at people and they can't understand, why do I have all this grace? Why do I have all these comforts? And the other people, they don't. Well, it must be because I'm oppressive that these people don't have it, that it's my fault. But here's the thing. Here's the key thing. Those same people that say that those other people are being oppressed, that's why they can't make it, are unwilling to give up a penny of their luxuries to support those people. They want everyone else to give up their luxuries to support the other people, but they won't give up a penny of their own. They won't do it. They won't say, hey, they'll vote for like higher taxes, but then they'll have so many tax loopholes for themselves. I don't even want to get into this part, but that's the thing when you get these protesters, all right? So, Larry, you don't know how your parents were influenced or your grandparents were influenced over the years, all right? How they were, who bombarded them, which groups they hung out with. You know, if you hang out all the time, you go to a very liberal school, and your parents are very liberal. Nothing wrong with that, all right? Nothing wrong with liberal or conservative. It's it's what you're doing with that, right? You go to a very liberal school. You have very liberal parents. You hang out in an area, and you have liberal. They have liberal friends. You know, they don't hang out with the conservative friends, or they're polite to them. And the same thing with the conservatives. They don't hang out with liberal friends, or they're just polite to them. And you're influenced your entire life to see things a certain way. All right?
Well, it comes down to always two things, okay? This is World War II era stuff. If you were right-wing, you must be now. This is the way the media portrays it, or these protesters. You hear about Gestapo in the streets. Anytime or associated with the president, you always hear it's Nazism, not fascism. Oh, no, you never hear anything about the brutalities of the left, of the communists. And when you talk to a lot of these people who were communists, it's like it never happened. None of this ever, it just kind of went away.
Well, the thing is, like, they don't acknowledge the 30 million that Stalin croaked off, right? 30 million.
Or Chinese.
Or the Chinese, all right? And
right.
Going over to communism, because to them, the ends justify the means at that point. Because and whenever communism fails, like it did in Russia, like it's doing in Venezuela, like it's always been a failure in Cuba. People are barely on a subsistence diet there, right? all these countries, Vietnam is gone away. They're communists, but they try to go free market to open it up to get, because, there's some, whenever they hit that and it fails, well, it wasn't the right type of communism. And then you had a book on it by Marx, all right? And, Marx said what it was, right? So they're not following it that way. But what Marx didn't understand, he absolutely didn't understand human nature. He was just one of these guys that, I'm smarter than everyone, so how come I'm not getting mine? All right? And he's not smarter than everyone because he didn't understand human nature. Human nature is kind of greedy. All right? Now, get back. I saw a meme on the social media, and it had Jimmy Carter. He's passed, he's gone. Shouldn't really talk about him, right? But
I just was at the Jimmy Carter Center last month.
He was saying that you should have, if you don't have compassion for the poor or anything, and it was kind of like you're a bad person. But if you go back to the epistles from Paul, right? Thessalonians, I believe, right? And he ends up saying, hey, you should take care of all the other people, but if they don't work, don't feed them. The trouble is...
Jimmy Carter was the best example of an ex-president. He was better as an ex-president than he ever was as a president.
He was working the background on a lot of stuff, too. Yeah. So, yes, working with his hands, Habitat for Humanity, everything else.
The very Christian missions. He was. If you judge him as an ex-president, he was great. If you judge him as a president, not so much.
But he was always he's also working the background, doing dirty tricks to make sure that the Democratic Party stayed in charge. Anyways, aside from that, the thing is, that if you have to work in the fields all day digging ditches and you get a loaf of bread, right? And someone who can't dig ditches and can't do anything else is getting a loaf of bread, then your brain's going to say, I just worked my neighbor there who seems to be physically fit, but he has a mental issue or he has a connection that the doctors say he can't work for whatever. He's getting the same thing I'm getting. Well, I might as well not work because then I'll just say I'm ill like that too, and I'm going to collect my loaf of bread. Until there's no one digging ditches or no one doing anything or no one harvesting the grain or no one baking the bread, all right? And then what happens is it all collapses because why should I work hard to support my family, support my kids, I help my kids out and everything. I work hard, they work hard, all right? And I help them out, all right? But I don't want to work hard for the neighbors that live down the street that didn't pay, they got a mortgage, back during a different regime when they were giving out mortgages to everyone, all right? They got the mortgage, and then they didn't pay their mortgage for 7 years while they found every excuse why not to get evicted, all right? And then the daughters are all on public aid because they have children and everything, and no one's working. And then my tax dollars they're taking tax dollars away from me to support these jamokes. And, it ticks me off. But, hey, after a while, if that gets into the neighborhood, it gets into people's feelings there that people are getting stuff for free and I'm giving it to them by force. People are forcing me to give this to them, and I vote not to want that. It's not non-compassion on my part. It's not that I don't have compassion, all right? It's not the child's fault.
About that?
But what it is, all right, is I have personal responsibility. I would like everyone else to have personal responsibility. Is that a bad thing?
Of course not.
All right.
As you know, I married a woman of a different race, and whenever we get together with some members of her family, right away, you know what they talk about? One thing in common: what can I get from the government for free?
All right, Larry, we're not discussing that right now. We're discussing domestic terrorism and foreign terrorism, and it's appropriate because in like the past the past week or 2 weeks where it was in the news, not in the major news, but in the underground news, the non-mainstream media, that the people in charge, the organizers behind all this, the people who are actually profiteering off it, have started fleeing the country. And the reason they're fleeing the country, because if they didn't do anything wrong, I guarantee you that they talked to lawyers and they said, listen, and they paid high-priced lawyers, and they said, what are the chances that in a couple months or maybe a couple years that the FBI will come after me because I was involved in this and they burned down this building, and there could be emails or stuff tracked back to me for me encouraging that or something. What are the chances they're going to come back to me? And the lawyer said, well, they're pretty good, and boop, they're gone. So these are the people that are out there, and they use wordsmithing. All right, they use nice words, anti-fascism, and they use fascist tactics. You know,
it's never even defined what fascism is. I read a book about it. It's something a cross between what Mussolini and Hitler had. But Hitler said he was a nationalist, socialist, worker.
Socialist is the key word there. All right, so it's control of the economy, total control of the economy by the government. All right. Okay. And in Nazism, nationalism, Germany first, and then Hitler would say yes or no whether these private corporations, quasi-private corporations, can do something. All right. So it's not like they're producing a gadget and selling it directly to people. They produce a gadget, and then the government has to approve that gadget.
And did you know Hitler was an Austrian draft dodger? Did you know that?
I believe he was a corporal in World War I, and he was, yes.
That's correct. That's correct. He became a corporal. That's why he joined the German army when the war started.
My grandfather was an Austrian draft dodger.
Okay, but then he didn't become a German citizen, and then he was in the gray area, though he fought for the Austrian-Hungary Empire and Germany.
We're getting off track, Larry. We're getting off track.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's not the subject. I know you're an expert on these things. I know you're an absolute expert. Larry is.
Wasn't he also a wallpaper guy, too?
Yeah, I'm not talking about that dude, man. That dude has been dead. Dude has been dead for over 75 years. Who cares?
Maybe.
All right, guys, you guys still be in Brazil. You guys make my Saturday.
All right.
I'm going to get off the air, but thank you, guys. Thanks for everything. Yeah. You're the best.
Hey, I want to give a shout-out to a new listener, Downtown Jose, that is on the YouTube line. So welcome, Downtown Jose.
Yeah, great. I'm glad to hear him. And how many minutes we got? We go 1 minute. All right, so when I get back, I want to talk about we had a little discussion, but I got to give a shout out to a guy out there. I kind of forgot his name, but I'm going to describe him. But he's a great guy. I only knew him for like a minute. Want to read some action-packed, exciting pulp fiction? Read the works of Michael Tooman, now featuring their international crime thriller, I Married a Bot Madam. Available on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle editions. The paperback is also available at other book retailers. Check out Michael Tooman's webpage at scilink.net. That's Papa Sierra Yankee Lima India November Kilo. November Echo Tango. Join your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvid on our weekly radio hour, Chief Guard of the Republic, where we talk about all things national security, defense, personal security, safety, and dealing with law enforcement situations. Call in 847-931-1410. Ask us questions. We will get you answers. Every week, Saturday, noon to 1 on 1410 AM WRMN Elgin. Streaming on WRMN1410.com. Chat with us on WRMN's YouTube live channel.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410 Elgin time, 1 o'clock.
I'm Julie Walker.
Anti-Trump protesters planning to mobilize all across the country today, and the banner for their big event, No Kings, tried to frame President Trump as an authoritarian dictator. Republicans have renamed the event the Hate America Rally. They say that as they're aiming it at President Trump, in fact, most of the protesters are opposed to fundamental American freedoms, and that is what President Trump represents. U.S. military efforts against a cartel from Venezuela. Now, this time they had survivors in the latest attack, which involved a submarine, as President Trump explained that yesterday to reporters.
We attacked a submarine, and that was a drug-carrying submarine built specifically for the transportation of massive amounts of drugs, just so you understand. This was not an innocent group of people. I don't know too many people that have submarines, and that was an attack on a drug-carrying, loaded-up submarine.
Some good news about Americans' health trends. The CDC says the number of states with rates of obesity at 35% or higher has now dropped for the first time in more than 10 years.
The rates varied from a low of 25% in Colorado to a high of more than 40% in West Virginia. The CDC data was analyzed by the nonprofit group Trust for America's Health.
And the latest figures follow a CDC report last year that found the overall rate of obesity around the country was about 40%. More from townhall.com.
So my mother is thinking of switching from Verizon to Pure Talk, but she's worried the deal sounds too good to be true. Michael, she said, how can those Pure Talk people offer me the same basic service as Verizon for so much less money? I said, Ma, go ask Google how much Verizon spends on advertising and promotions. A few seconds later, my mother said, oh, my goodness, $12 billion a year? That must be a typo. I'll tell you what I told my mom. It's not a typo. Verizon spends $12 billion a year on advertising and promotions, and their customers are paying for it. Well, Pure Talk doesn't spend that kind of money on commercials. Trust me, I would know. That's why they can offer you and my mother unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data on a crazy fast 5G network for just $25 a month. And if you're a business owner, you could really save a fortune. Dial pound 250, say the words Mike Rowe, and you'll get an additional 50% off your first month. That's pound 250 Mike Rowe. Pure Talk. Everything you need and nothing you don't.
The U.S. succeeds in blocking a global fee on shipping emissions as an international meeting adjourns in London.
The world's largest maritime nations had been discussing ways to move the shipping industry away from fossil fuels. On Thursday, U.S. President Donald Trump urged countries on social media to vote against the regulations. The proposed regulations would have set a marine fuel standard and imposed fees for emissions above allowable limits. Shipping emissions have grown to about 3% of the global total, increasing calls for action. Saudi Arabia called for a vote to adjourn the meeting for a year. More than half the countries agreed. I'm Haya Panjwani.
President Trump is giving domestic automakers some relief from his tariffs. He's extending a special rebate on auto parts until the year 2030. Tariffs on those parts had threatened to raise costs for automakers, and the exemption was originally supposed to be just a short-term bridge, but he's extended it now. Breaking news at townhall.com. Striking Boeing workers are ready to talk.
Shares of Boeing rose 1% as the union representing more than 3,200 striking Boeing workers has agreed to resume contract discussions with the U.S. plane maker starting Monday. The strike is now 3 months old. The International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers represents members who assemble fighter jets and munitions at Boeing's facilities in St. Louis. The announcement comes a day after the union filed an unfair labor practice charge with the National Labor Relations Board against Boeing. Bill Alexander, Washington.
Louisville has pulled off a stunning victory and an upset in college football, beating the second-ranked Miami Hurricanes 24-21 last night. The Cardinals had been 0-18 against top 10 teams in true road games before this win, and last night's victory could propel Louisville into the AP Top 25 rankings when they're released this weekend. You'll find more of these stories at townhall.com.
When disaster strikes, flood or fire, every second counts. At Emergency Construction Group, they specialize in immediate response and same-day service for any residential, commercial, or industrial emergency across the Chicagoland area. With over 30 years of experience, they've got the expertise, manpower, and equipment to handle any size loss fast. They follow strict IICRC guidelines to restore your property the right way, the first time. Their team values transparency, constant communication, and strong ethical standards because your peace of mind matters. Licensed, bonded, and insured, they're here for you 24/7, 365 days a year. Call 855-4ECG now. That's 855-432-4669. Or visit their website at emergencyconstructiongroup.com and let Emergency Construction Group put your life back together one step at a time. That's Emergency Construction Group. Your satisfaction is their passion.
Fix Bennett's Comrades, Chief Guard of the Republic radio shout-out show with the co-host Mike Tuman and Paul Burvid. And we're here for the second half, the 1 until 2 show, 1 until 2 hour. And we're talking today about domestic and foreign terrorism, although we've gotten into things, especially Little King's Day, because we try to do things that are, I'm not saying pop culture, but current, like little current events, right? And how they tie into these things, and how it ties into national security, and how it ties in to law enforcement, and how, how all this ties in a trying to be on a layman's term with this and explain it. So you could call in here at 847-931-1410, or you could hit us up in the text. And a lot of my friends, I hit them all up. I sent out my list. I says, hey, text us in, 505-926-1410. And thank you so much. I got a lot of replies. I haven't been able, I got to catch up with them because we go here. I know Angie, my friend in Arizona, she's asking about beef prices. Maybe we'll talk about food price manipulation by deep state actors in the future. There's another one out there. I don't remember all their phone numbers, but I can kind of guess who they are. Happy No King's Day. Goodbye, goodbye, George. We haven't had a King's. Yeah, nice. All right, so I'm getting your text in there. I'm trying to respond, but, the shout-outs are great. Okay. Where and how do we see 2 live terrorist survivors from the Venezuelan narco boat to be prosecuted? Well, all right, so that's up there, right? And I wanted to get to that because one of my pickleball friends is very concerned about the use of the U.S. military to zap narco boats. And when we zap them, when a Hellfire missile hits a motorboat that's doing about 40, 50 miles an hour over the waves in the ocean, and even if the people survive, when they get thrown off that motorboat and they smack into, water's not soft at 50 miles an hour, all right? And they smack into it, God knows what's happened, and the helicopters ain't looking for survivors. Most of these are being shot by helicopters flown from these destroyers, right? So if they're alive and they're captured, all right, so they're captured in international waters by the United States, and they're treated as criminals. All right, they're not going to bring them to the United States because they didn't commit their crimes in the United States. So they're going to bring them for I would say that the Navy's going to bring them to Gitmo. That's my guess. Having dealt with these things, we list people as criminal, or we list them as high value targets, or low value targets, or foreign fighters, or terrorists. And the thing to tie this into terrorists, for my friend from our pickleball group, and I agree with them. When it's a nice world and we shouldn't be killing anyone. I don't agree with killing. And I've made my point clear on here that I'm 100% against the death penalty. I'm absolutely against the death penalty. Because we don't use our prison space efficiently. And because I'm 100% pro-life. If people don't like that and they hate me for it, that's fine. I'm pro-life, and you can't be pro-life and pro-death penalty. It just confuses me. Yes, the children are innocent. The onboard children, human childs, are absolutely innocent. They haven't done anything to anybody. They have a soul. They have an existence that started at conception. That's it. All right? That's my belief. They haven't done anything. And yes, some of these people, beyond the shadow of a doubt, are the most evil, vile things that have ever walked the face of the earth, and might not even have a soul, might be possessed by a demon, might be any of that. But there's always salvation possible through God, and we don't know God's time. All right? And if that person truly repents in enough time, then that's truly repents. It's it's the 1 in a billion chance. But we're waiting for that 1 in a billion chance. The Christ child was the 1 in a billion chance, right? We're waiting for that. And like it's in Jesus said, the angels rejoice more over one repentant sinner than they do over 100 righteous men. So just to get that out of the way. Now, if you're shooting at me with a gun, I'm going to shoot you. Is that the death penalty? That's self-defense. If you're shooting at an innocent with a gun, because police officer, I'm going to shoot you. And I don't shoot to wound. The police aren't trained to shoot to wound. The police are trained to shoot to kill. That's called deadly force. It's not called wounding force. It's not called, wing him force. It's not called give him a flesh wound force. It's called center of mass, blast his heart, blast a bullet through his sternum, blast his sternum and his heart through his backbone, and leave him 10 feet behind in a wall. That's what police are trained to do. All right? Shoot to kill, because it's deadly force. All right? If a person's doing something that requires deadly force to stop them, then you do it. All right? That's not the death penalty. That's protecting your life or the life of another. All right? That's protection. All right? War, same thing. All right? You're killing to protect your people. These narco-terrorists, they are facilitating. No, how do you know there's evidence that how do you know the evidence that they had drugs, that they were bringing them into the country? How do you know that they were cartel members? How do you know all this stuff? Well, we have intelligence agencies out there. We have surveillance. We have information coming in that confirms or denies from different sources that are saying, you know what? That's a narco-terrorist boat. Or it's what we call high confidence that's a narco-terrorist boat. And we give them a chance to stop. We give them a chance to stop. All right. Sometimes the helicopter goes, roar, 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 roar. They don't understand. But they should have, if they're in international waters, they should have a radio just for their own safety. And it should be on a certain band, right? And that's what the Coast Guard, because every Navy ship's got a Coast Guard member on there, because the Coast Guard has the law enforcement ability that the Navy does not have. All right. It's, again, you read the Constitution, you understand this thing. The Coast Guard comes under Title 14. All right. And when they don't stop, they sink them. And if the people die when they get sunk, well, they should have stopped. And if you the thing, how to get into this? You got a sovereign power, Venezuela, sovereign power, sovereign country, right? Sovereign country. But they are facilitating, quote, non-state actors. But where is that dope, the drugs coming from? Well, they're coming from Venezuela. And what happens with the money? Well, it comes back to Venezuela. And it props up, it's used to prop up the government that is, didn't Venezuela declare war on us? Paul?
I know they said that they were prepared to go to war. I don't know if it was an actual declaration. I didn't see that, but it could be.
All right. Well, we're propping up the government. And the money, all right, so I got a question for you, Paul. Which country in the entire world, you know, and you might not know all the names of the countries, but just think of the bigger ones. Which country in this world is the number one funder of terrorism?
Well, I know Iran was.
No, they're not. They're not even close. They're dropping the bucket.
China?
Nope. It's the United States.
Oh.
It's absolutely the United States.
Okay.
All right? The dope money goes and funds this. Remember Iran-Contra? That stuff too, right? All that nonsense. It's the money that's collected. And remember, we're talking about domestic terrorism too. So you have these donors that donate money to these organizations, right? And they do it because, hey, it's my First Amendment right. You know, I can donate to whoever I really want, except politically, you know, political organizations. I give my money to who I want, right? But when you say that they're a terrorist organization, now you're supporting terrorism. So the same thing, the dope money is going to prop up not only this, but terrorism. All right, some oil money, some illegal oil money, terrorism. Some illegal mineral money, terrorism. Money's going to that. It's a supporter of terrorism. The United States, by having small groups donate little bits of money, and that money goes overseas to someone like Iran, all right? To some country like Iran. So they're donating to their religious groups, their so-called religious groups, and that religious group sends money to Iran, and then Iran collects that money and funds Hamas or Hezbollah, right? Well, that money, where did it originally come from? The United States, our citizens. Right. In one way, the people over here earned the money, then they gave the money, and then it goes over there and comes back. So, yeah, you could say Iran, you know, is giving the money away, but where did they get the money? They got it from us, right? And we let so much of that money go overseas like that, you know, untracked, untraced. But the easiest way to do it is through dope. You know, because you're selling something, then you're letting the dope guys smuggle the money out, all that stuff. So when you allow the dope to come into the United States, you know, you're allowing chemical warfare against our own people. It weakens the people. It kills some of the people. It puts a crippling effect on our medical services, all right? It puts a crippling effect on our law enforcement because when you're hurting for that high, when you're addicted and you're hurting from the high, your brain thinks of one thing and anything it could do to get the money to get that dope to fix your high. Whether it's embezzling the money, whether it's a Ponzi scheme, you know, for bigger level, you know, cokeheads or anything, or whether it's, you know, robbing a little old lady to get your crack rock. All right. So that's all caused by that. Now you have the people that overdose on the street. We are the most compassionate country on the face of the earth. I don't care about these Europhiles. I don't care about the people from wherever, right? That say that this country, the Buddhists in Tibet or whatever. No, the United States is the most compassionate country on the face of the earth because when you got a guy there that is just overdosed on heroin, all right, and the ambulance comes and Narcan's him up, which is going to cost a couple $1,000s just in the ambulance fees, and then they take him to the hospital, and then he's in the emergency room, and they stabilize him and whatever, and he ain't got a dime to pay for that. Are they going to refuse him into the emergency room?
No.
Guess what? Go to South America and see what happens.
Yeah, Venezuela won't take him in the emergency room.
Yeah. All right, so I've been holding a caller on here. Can we have the caller on?
Hello.
Hey, Cleveland Dennis.
Hey, Dennis.
How'd you know?
Hi,
guys.
I know you're hello, Dennis. I'm glad you're out there listening.
Yeah, no, I tuned in a little bit late because I was cutting through downtown Elgin from one of the great grandkids' football games, dropping off one of the granddaughters, and we were going to meet at the library, and holy moly, anyhow. I want to make a comment. I took the class. Maybe you guys heard me say before, what you must know about communism. This was like in the early 70s when I was in college. Now, I moved forward, and recently I heard on a certain podcast who somebody that has a national talk show had a guy, ex-Venezuelan, living here, and he explained communism in 15 minutes or less in reference to the country of Venezuela and how they were a very, capitalistic, successful democracy and all that, and how it turned. And the way he explained it was just unbelievable to me because he said it all, how they overcame and took the businesses, and now they're down to nothing and they got to deal in drugs. I love your guys' show today, what you're discussing. That's all I got.
All right, thanks, Dennis. So
thanks,
I need to reiterate something. We had a question here from one of the people I asked to text in. Okay, no kings, narco boat. Okay, let me get back here. I forget. Messages. All right. Oh, so somebody asked, all right, do you see the National Guard troops on the city streets? All right, so one, people are going, oh my God, they're stomping on, it's martial law, the National Guard's called out, and he's using them like the no kings thing, right? Well, no. The National Guard has been called out, okay? It's called out in these cities. Not to arrest people. They're not called up under their own state, under Title 50 to do law enforcement work. That could happen, all right? State call them up, Title 50, said they're going to do law enforcement work. They'll do law enforcement work, the Posse Comitatus Act. But the reason you have Texas come up, because Illinois, he doesn't want to activate the Illinois National Guard because get in a contest with the governor and everything. But send in another state's National Guard, because as soon as they're activated by the president, they become federal. They're federalized. All right? The president activates them. They're now federal. They're actually transferred into the Army Reserve. All right? And because they're in the Army Reserve, they don't have the Posse Comitatus Act. All right? So get this. They're in the Army. It's a magic transfer. You go from Title 32 to Title 10. All right? Been there, done that. All right? You're now part of the Army Reserve. So he can send you anywhere in the nation because you're not part of the National Guard. You've been absorbed into the Army Reserve. But they're still calling them Guard soldiers, right? In essence, when they're done with them, they get transferred back into the Guard. So they are there for one purpose. Well, two purposes. The protection of government property. So government buildings, courthouse buildings, FBI offices, the post office, Social Security buildings, any government building or any building that's contracted for the government, because a lot of government agents contract in a building, all right, which won't supply enough adequate security for them. So they're there to protect these buildings from being burnt down, from having the vandalized, from being vandalized, burnt down, destroyed, lots of damage, cost us money, taxpayers' money, all right? The government's just going to raise taxes to fix that, all right? And to protect U.S. government personnel. So it's ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It's Department of Homeland Security that's going out there, all right? And they're going out there. They have limited numbers, all right? And they're getting swamped. And cities like Chicago and their deputy, the chief of patrol, and the street deputies say, "Oh, just ignore them, drive away." Even though there was a shooting, even though this woman had rammed the police and the ICE and tried to kill them, even though they were being surrounded by people that are, believe me, I've been surrounded out there before. It's not a pleasant sight. It's not a pleasant feeling either. And the people that are supposed to be keeping the peace, the city police, right? They're nowhere to be found because they were told to leave. They were given an order to leave. So when you don't have the city support on the laws, remember we talked about the law. If you don't like the law, you had, like you said, Paul, 12 years. Change the law, get rid of it. But they wouldn't. Just like, all right, so then, right, you bring in the guard so that ICE can do their job. The guard's not locking anyone up, all right? The guard is protecting personnel and property. That's it. All right? So get it straight. Read the Constitution. Read Title 10. Read Title 50. Read Title 14. Read Title 32 as it applies to the Army Reserve, the active Army, the National Guard, the Air National Guard, the Marine Corps, the Navy, and the Coast Guard under Title 14. Read that and understand that it's all in the law there. The government really can't violate its own law unless you're a judge. And then you got to wait for your bosses to overturn it. But you delay. You're obstructing and delaying. So, when I said about the law, and I did the pro-life thing, and I have to get this out there, right? So, and, full disclosure, Roman Catholic, all right? Went to Roman Catholic grammar schools, high school, not college. Went to Yuck. Went to University of Illinois, downtown there in Chicago Circle. Barely scraped by with a degree. But when the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade and said, no, it's not a federal right, it's not a federal law, it's not in the Constitution. Therefore, if it's not in the Constitution and it's not a law in the Constitution, it goes back to the states, right? Goes back. That's right there, right? That's the 10th Amendment, right? If it don't belong to the federal government, it belongs to the states, right? So what happened again? They could have made a federal law. They had the House, they had the Senate, they had the presidency. They didn't have the Supreme Court. So they could have sat there, and our boy, Dick Durbin, in the Senate, could have introduced the Senate bill. Any of our congressional representatives, right, from Illinois, could have introduced a bill to make abortion a federal law, to make it a guaranteed, if you want an abortion on demand, you go in and get it, and it would be federal law. Did anyone introduce that bill, Paul?
No.
Nobody did.
They talked about it, and maybe they attempted,
they
but
would get thrown out of office. They wouldn't win their re-election. Dick Durbin would have been thrown out on his butt. And the same thing, as soon as they introduced that bill, then our boy in the Vatican, as soon as they introduced that bill, they put it in writing that they're backing up abortion on demand, should have excommunicated them. Boom. Same thing with Joe Biden. If he signed off on that law, you're excommunicated. The basic tenets, pro-life of the church, you have just violated it. And I don't care about separated church from state, right? Because guess what? There is a separation. The church is not going to prevent that. They can't prevent the president from signing it, but they can react to it, right? And can the United States tell the Vatican not to excommunicate someone?
No. Because
there's a separation of church and state. Because the government can't tell the churches what to do either. Although they try. But every time, it becomes a matter of morality, basic common human decency morality, then they scream, separation of church from state, that's all religion. All right. So after these commercials, we'll be back for more ranting from your favorite ranter, Mike Tooman.
If you turned 65 recently like me, it's important you find a Medicare Advantage plan that gives you the coverage you're looking for. But finding one can be difficult. The best thing I did, and I suggest you do the same, is call a licensed insurance agent and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to, so make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare Advantage plan can be easy if you do what I did. Make a quick call right now to learn more. Thank you.
800-433-3082. 800-433-3082. 800-433-3082. That's 800-433-3082.
Hi there, Tammy Scully here from Talk Time with Tammy and Friends. Join me and my sidekicks Nancy and Becky for valuable lifestyle tips and unique views and insights on interesting topics and everyday situations, providing nonstop fun and chuckles for all. Get the scoop on consumer news, deep dive on current events, and learn about the newest economic trends, from exercise and gardening to music, travel, recipes, sports, pets, real estate, media, and everything in between. And it's all sprinkled with a healthy helping of bad dad jokes and interesting fun facts to boot. Tune in Mondays through Thursdays from 2 to 4 p.m. for a little fun, frolic, and infotainment. Join us, won't you?
The Supplemental Security Income Program provides monthly payments to help meet basic needs, like putting food on the table, paying the rent, or buying new shoes for growing feet. You may qualify if your income and financial resources are low, and you are 65 or older, or an adult or child with a disability, or who is blind. Call 1-800-772-1213 or go to ssa.gov/SSI to start to apply. Produced by Social Security at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Looking for expert care in orthopedic or spine surgery? Prime Healthcare St. Joseph Hospital in Elgin is proud to offer top programs to our region. With a robust line of treatment options, St. Joseph Hospital specializes in minimally invasive procedures along with an advanced imaging suite to assist with orthopedic and back surgeries. Recognized by U.S. News and World Report as a high performer across multiple surgery types and home to highly trained expert healthcare professionals, St. Joseph Hospital is here for your every surgical need.
Get ready for Around the House every Saturday night from 5 to 7 p.m. on WRMN AM 1410. If you're a homeowner or contractor looking to tackle those projects that feel a bit too big, this is the show for you. Join Eric along with his knowledgeable guests as they dive deep into everything from DIY renovations to creating a healthy home environment. We'll provide you with the tools and tips you need to complete your projects with confidence and ease. But it's not all work and no play. We believe in having fun. Our passion for home improvement shines through as we help you save time, money, and reduce the stress of DIY. So whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, don't miss Around the House. Tune in every Saturday night and let's tackle those home projects together.
to turn on the Zoom again. And so, Fixed Bandits, comrades, we're back for the last quarter of the Chief Guard of the Republic radio show, where we've been discussing basically domestic terrorism and how it's kind of aligned with No King's Day, and then how foreign terrorism gets aligned, and how actually what they call domestic terrorism, all right, can easily be changed into foreign terrorism, so long as they prove that the domestic terrorists. I'm getting some reverb. The terrorists are being funded by foreign entities. Once they commit acts dangerous to the life and health of people, right, or criminal in the United States, right, and they prove that was foreignly funded, then that foreign funder becomes a supporter of terrorism. And since he's foreign, he is now a foreign terrorist, or it is now a foreign terrorist organization because they're taking foreign funding. It is no longer First Amendment right, because the foreigners don't really have, operating outside the United States, don't have a First Amendment right in the United States. They're not citizens. All right. So, Paul, give me some, who do you think, okay, so I think the only one right now that they're looking at, that the president said for the FBI to look at, and like I said, the FBI does not look at the group as a whole. They look at individuals within the group to charge with terrorism. And you can see that they're very specific on these things, because you go back to the FBI's 10 Most Wanted page, and some of these people date back to stuff that was in the 60s, that they still think these people are alive, right? Or they have information that they're alive, and they're still one of the top 10 domestic terrorists that are wanted. So there's been domestic terrorists wanted for quite a while. So other than Antifa...
One of the recent ones was someone related to Tupac or something. She just died in Cuba. She was on the list.
Yes,
and she was like in her late 70s, I thought. So,
and one of the things they said about her is she could be identified by her mustache. You look at the FBI's page; it was awesome. It was funny. I like it. Yeah. Okay. So.
She hid out at traveling carnivals. That's how she got out.
Nice. So the carnies protected her. I'm sure unknowingly, because now other than Antifa, now I'm thinking that every gang organization that's dealing drugs or whatever, and should be listed as a domestic terrorist organization, and they should be looking at their leadership, their high up leadership, and locking them up on these charges. So other than Antifa, who do you think it should be next, that they should look at next? Or the president should come out and say, I think these guys are real domestic terrorists?
I think anybody that George Soros funded, maybe his organization, anybody that's trying to subvert justice, things like that. But, who would you put on your list?
Like I said, any of the top, the big gangs, the GDs, the Latin Kings, and go on forever. But GDs and Latin Kings are the big ones.
I got an old one for you, okay? There's
the insane popes.
There's 3 gang guys in the backseat of a police car, a gangster disciple, an insane pope, and pick your other one. Who's driving?
The police officer.
That's correct.
How did they get in the backseat of a police car? They're subverting the strength of the United States. Now, if people, they like communism, right? Communism is so great, all right? The Chinese had what they called the 13-cent solution.
It's a bullet.
Yes. So they took all their junkies and all their dope dealers, and they said, you have a year to reform, or maybe even less time. And then they rounded them all up again. And if you're still addicted, well, they cured you. Apparently, you know.
And then they recouped their losses by selling your organs on the black market.
Well, that was before the organ transplants were big. This is what we're talking in the 40s, all right?
Yeah.
Because they had a big opium epidemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they recouped their losses from the 13-cent bullet by billing your family for the 13 cents for the bullet. That is not that's not even a myth. That's like real stuff. All right. So they just boom all at once, you know, absolutely no civil rights. Okay, well, the ends justify the means. So they reduced their massive opium epidemic. All right. But it still finds its way through because they're still allowing, right, opium to be produced. Like we allowed opium to be produced in Afghanistan. We could have burnt out all that stuff any time we wanted. No problem. You want to get the Taliban to go to open field warfare with you? To stand in open and not be, you know, not fight this guerrilla war on you? Start burning the opium fields, the poppy fields. Burn them. They're going to have to come out and defend them. Then you just machine gun them down. You know? Because that was their major funding. They carried around bags of opium as currency. All right? There's warehouses of the stuff. Why didn't we get rid of it? Well, ask the State Department. All right? But now that stuff comes into the United States and kills our people.
You know, that was a big subtext to the plots of most of the Miami Vice shows about the drugs and the opium from the Far East to the Middle East to you know, that was with Lieutenant Castillo and the whole bit coming from the DEA. By the way, downtown Jose says the Vice Lords in Chicago, so he's right too.
The Vice Lords, yeah, they're up north.
Yeah.
All right. So when you're talking about the Chinese, all right, why don't the Chinese import the stuff straight into the West Coast? Because they don't have the infrastructure to do that anymore. Right? They have a little bit of infrastructure, but the main infrastructure for smuggling dope into the United States is the South American cartels. All right? They have the rat lines, they have the boat lines, they have everything else. If you want your stuff to get up here with the best chance of success, you go through them. All right? Sure, you could have people. You know, you could have people secreting dope on their body, muling dope through their body, and maybe they get through, but how much profit is it when you're talking about, you know, 1.5 tons of pure opium, right, or pure heroin on a speedboat, right? The profit margin's way up there. Not only that, they don't even have to grow poppies anymore because they have fentanyl, which is synthetic heroin, but it's like 1,000 times more powerful. And, you know, there's actually, if there wasn't a market for it in the United States, if the 13-cent, well, what does a 9mm round cost, Paul?
Maybe now about 23, 26 cents. It depends.
Yeah, if you get them in bulk too, right? So if the government's buying it, it's probably 20 cents a round. So it'd be the 20-cent solution. And if there really was a king here and he really wanted to cure his kingdom and he really wanted to cripple China, to cripple Venezuela, to take the pressure off, and I'm not abdicating for this because I already caveated this, right? I'm pro-life. But if we had a real king here, he would round up all the drug dealers using the National Guard, just round them all up, put them in a camp, line them up with all the junkies. Every time a junkie comes in with heroin, tested with heroin, he gets thrown in a camp, and then give him the 20-cent solution. Boom, 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 boom. Then you don't have a market for it in the United States anymore. One, people realize that, crap, if I'm a junkie, they're going to put a bullet in my head, right? Two, there's no one pushing it anymore because if I push that stuff, they're going to put a bullet in my head, right? There's no market for it anymore. if they don't have a market for it, they're not getting the U.S. currency back to support their economies, to underwrite their economies. So they can't build this huge Navy and this huge Army or the huge secret police to keep your people in line, because you can't keep them in line with bread and circuses. You blew through that already, right? So now you keep them in line with force. You got to pay the thugs working for you as if they might not even be Venezuelan. They may be foreign mercenaries, right? So you end the market here, and that crushes them all. Would we do that, Paul?
No.
Because we're the most compassionate country on the face of the earth. All right? We're the most we're the most judicious, and if not justice for the innocent, there is clearly now in the United States a lean towards the rights of the criminals, right? The scales of justice are the criminal has these rights, and they never look at the victims. So the victims have very little rights, and the criminals, they need to be rehabilitated, as opposed
the victims have no rights. They have no rights whatsoever. Because the whole criminal justice system is based on the defendant's rights, freedom of speech, freedom not to speak against yourself, freedom of a jury trial, freedom of this, freedom of unreasonable search and seizure. Our whole justice system is the rights of the defendant, or we would call him the accused. But it's the the working man, the victim. They have no rights. You might be right. You might be able to
be a police officer that falls on the wrong side of the law.
Right. You have no rights. You'll be railroaded. They'll take you out on a rail. Yeah, I said that many times. If I did what some of these people do, I'd be in jail. And no one.
Well, you should know better.
Yep.
That's what they said. You should know better, which says that you're a better person than everyone else, right? So the government has just said you're better.
Follow the rules,
Yeah. Well, they want to keep you in line because you're more dangerous than everyone else.
Correct.
All right. Because if I wanted to run a criminal enterprise, like I says, I'm a terrible, awful, bad person. I am the worst person, probably one of the worst people on the face of the earth, and I fight every single day against those demons. Every single day, not to grab a tire iron and beat someone that pissed me off. Not to get justice for some little old lady. Just go in and wipe them out. Just to, I fight the urges every day to try to be a good person. And try, maybe not very successfully. But there's people that don't even fight that. They just do whatever they want. And when it comes to personal accountability, they don't have any. And the justice system, which should hold up to personal accountability, doesn't have it for them. Because we're the most compassionate, sometimes in a bad way. Like, I forget the guy that said compassion, mercy to the guilty is oppression of the innocent. So I do not advocate for the 13 cent or the 20 cent solution, because that's an easy problem solver. And what would happen? The ends would justify the means, which is what these protesters are looking for. They're looking for the ends to justify the means. If you want a change, then when your version, your outlook was a certain way, why weren't you demanding that your representatives introduce these laws? And when they didn't introduce the laws, why didn't you primary them out or throw them out of office and get someone that would introduce that law? because it's easier to have public opinion swayed so that the law that is on the books is not enforced. So before we run out of time, I thought this was pretty interesting. And let me get it up here on my magic iPad that my girlfriend gave me. All right. So I'm looking at the designated foreign terrorist organizations, and this is off the State Department's webpage, which is pretty cool, right? And the last administration took office on what day? January 21st, 2021, right?
Right.
All right. So during that time, the last administration, 4 years, decided that ISIS Mozambique, ISIS DRC, right? Democratic Republic of China, ISIS DRC in China, right? And the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia and Segunda Marcatella, right? Those are the only 4 organizations that the previous administration had listed as terrorist organizations. During the time previous to that, between 2016, all right, we had 1, 2, I won't say them all, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 organizations designated as terrorist organizations. I'm not going to go in before and everything and match the numbers, but it seems obvious that the State Department, and I said the State Department controls, they're the top level of this. Of course, the Secretary of State works for the president. It's part of his cabinet. So yeah, he's going to have some direction, but it's that guy's, you can't micromanage everything, so you have to know how to distribute the workload. So the State Department is naming these things, and that's a big part of your diplomatic power. Because, like I said, once you name that organization as a foreign terrorist organization, then the United States, the Treasury Department's going to go seize all their assets, flatten them, break them. A lot of those assets go to support the countries that are harboring these people. So they're going to be in a foreign country and they're going to be living in I'll get. So like in Palestine, right? In Gaza, the Hamas leaders, where were they living, Paul? The leaders of Hamas.
They were living in some other country.
They're living in Qatar.
Yeah.
Qatar, whatever. All right? That's where they're living. All right? They weren't in. And so all this money is going to fund them in 5-star hotels. Right? So once you list them as a terrorist organization and you track that money and you freeze it, now these guys can't stay in 5-star hotels because their assets are frozen, at least in the United States. They may have, assets frozen. But when I'm doing, if I'm doing a favored nation trade agreement, and I find out that this nation is in their banks has a lot of Hamas, Hezbollah money, ISIS money, all the South American cartel money, and they're holding that in their banks. And of course, the banks, the country is, collecting fees over it or using that money as leverage. So it's helping to fund their government. And I says, hey, seize those accounts. And they go, no. I go, okay, 200% tariff on all your goods. And I'm putting a level 4 travel advisory from the State Department. I'm not giving your people visas to come in here anymore, and I'm going to highly advise my people not to go there for tourists or spend their money. And any U.S. companies that spend your money in your country, I'm going to hit them with the extra taxes. And that's that really economically, there's my strong suit, right? I don't have to threaten them with invasion or anything. I threaten the money. So now that country is going to say, hey, The United States declared you a terrorist organization. Either get your money out of here, we're not harboring you anymore. That's where we have our diplomacy on that stuff.
Right.
So, and I wish people, I know a lot of people out there already understand this, and I hope I'm not in an echo chamber, where I'm just, my listeners only want to hear what they believe. All right. I wish there's listeners out there that don't believe exactly. I know there's a lot of listeners out there that wholeheartedly believe in the death penalty, that there should be consequences for your heinous actions. There will be. I guarantee you there will be. Not in this world. All right? Maybe not in this world. Prison's not enough for what they did. But my belief is that they will pay for it. Because if I didn't have that belief that criminals will, that heinous people will pay in the future, in the afterlife, then why shouldn't I do the same thing and not get caught? Right. Why shouldn't I rob money? Why shouldn't I run a Ponzi scheme? Why shouldn't I smartly do it and not get caught by the FBI? Why shouldn't I hide money, launder money, everything else, and be living high on the hog? And, and when I get old and my kidneys fail, I go to China and I pay them for a new kidney and I pay them for a new liver because I didn't stop drinking because I just want to drink my liver away. I could get a new one. So that's my belief system, right? That even if there isn't, like I said, God doesn't punish us. I get to be a preacher, right? God doesn't punish us or reward us for our actions on earth. Goodwill to other people is a reward in itself. You're rewarding yourself because you're being good to people. You feel good about yourself with that. Some people need physical dope, drink, money, luxuries, and everything, and they do bad things. All right? Bad things happen to good people. Good things happen to bad people. It happens, right? God doesn't reward us for our actions while we're down on earth. So bad actions, he's not going to strike us down with the lightning bolt. Good actions, he's not going to have us win the lottery. When we get to the afterlife, that's where we're definitely going to have to answer. So you got to tell yourself, what's going to be your answer when you get up there? Some people never ask themselves. Some people didn't have the faith. They don't have the belief. What do you think, Paul?
I think you're right.
Yeah. Maybe I'm simplifying it. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it. Maybe some people think it's more complex than that. But I like having a simple life. I like simplifying things for myself. I like understanding. There's not a complicated equation to it all. It's pretty much out there. Doing good things, it's its own reward. I
like peacefulness and tranquility.
Yeah. Peacefulness, tranquility. If you're a real good guy, right? You're a good guy, you never bothered anyone and everything, and you fall on hard times, and you ask for help. Who's not going to help that guy? Right? Give him a little help. He's never asking for it. He may be even embarrassed to take it. Now, if you're a person that has been propped up your whole life by other people and things get worse and you ask for even more, people get tired of that. Work for yourself.
Happy Sweetness Day, everybody.
Happy Sweetness Day to my girlfriend, Diane. To all my previous girlfriends out there, I still love you all. And to my ex-wife, I still love her. I was just down in Mexico with her. Love rather than hate. Although hate is a pretty cool emotion. It keeps you warm in the winter at night.
Hate is anti-love.
Yeah. But love is the best. And peace out, people. Tune in next week for more Chief Guard of the Republic. I'm sorry I didn't get back to all the texts, but God bless you for all texting me and everything and for tuning in and listening. I'll pass it on to your friends. Paul, pass it on to your friends. We're pretty good here. That's it? All right. Thanks, Matt.
Happy